Yeah. Plus, at walking home, we can take our little time. But it's good. It's good exercise.
We were on a Salem trolley, tour around
Okay, I'd like to
town.
welcome you to our humble trolley this afternoon. Normally I would tell you could get on and off this trolley, but since the pandemic is here, we changed things. We're doing a non-stop tour. We will return here in an hour, contrary to some rumors that we are going to Lisbon, Portugal. So let me give you a brief synopsis of how Salem came to be. It all started over 3,000 miles away from this spot. The year was 1592. A baby boy was born. His name, Roger Conan. He was born in a very small village called East Budley, Devonshire, England. By 1623, he married his childhood sweetheart, Sarah. They had a son, Caleb. The three of them, in that year, 1623, crossed the stormy North Atlantic to land at Plymouth, Massachusetts. Right off the bat, they ran into problems. They lost their baggage at the airport. Somebody's awake. I'm going to run with it. Seriously, he did not get on well with the Puritans. I don't know too many people who did, except maybe Betty, our driver. She would have got on like a house on fire with the Puritans. So only after about 10 months, he upped and moved his family to a small village east of Boston. Lived there just over a year and a half. When a Reverend White approached him, asked him if he would like to govern a fishing company village. He jumped at the chance, moved his family up to a point about 16 miles northeast of present-day Salem. And you know what? Just over a year, this fishing company village failed. So now they had several hundred people, several ships. They lived on the Lord's ship, sailed down to what is present-day Salem. What they found here was an okay harbor, nothing special. More importantly, they found an Indian tribe who were incredibly friendly, and Salem grew into what you see today. Now we're about to make a sharp right turn into Pickering Wharf. Pickering Wharf was built in the 1970s in the same footprint as they thought a fishing company village looked like, much like Roger Conan left back in 1623. As we've gone through the midday hour, I should tell you that as we approach the evening hour, there are at least 5 wonderful restaurants here. There are shops of every description. However, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that they have 2 replicas of ships that sailed out of Salem back in the 1800s. The very first one is a privateer, the Fame. She was one of 40 that sailed out of Salem between 1812 and 1814. Today we have a replica, an exact replica of the Fame. She was built in the same shipyard as the original one. Now as we round the corner here, you are going to see a ship across the harbor. That is not the Fame. The Fame is to the right here. Look to the end of the dock and you will see 2 wooden masts. If you're here on the weekend, she makes 2-hour excursions under full sail into Salem Harbor. Now here in Pickering Wharf, they have a whole series of small shops. Most of them are owned by followers of Wiccan or modern-day witchcraft. And I'm told that at least one of the owners here, with a passenger coin across their palm, will cast a spell for you on something or somebody. Now I've never tried it. I always ask our passengers, if they do, please come back. Tell me how they made out. And unless the frog approached my front door this morning, chased by my pet Siamese cat, was one of our former passengers, I have no idea what happens when he approaches a spell here at Pickering Wharf. Now for many years, Salem was the leading port in America. Ships literally left for almost every known port around the world. If you look to the right, you are going to see 5 ports of the sun, 60 ports. They used to dock Salem Harbor. The ship right up to the left there is another replica, this time of the Friendship. The original Friendship was built in 1797, the same year that they built the USS Constitution in Boston. The original Friendship made at least 18 voyages out of Salem, some of them completely around the world. This replica was built in Albany, New York, 29 years ago. She has a small diesel engine and a full suit of sails. And when she sails here in Salem, we claim her as our unofficial full ship. If you look forward to the second left here to the second brick building, look at the corner office with the green shutters. In there, the famous writer, Nathaniel Hawthorne, was employed as a port surveyor. He must have been very bored with his uncompany time. He started one of his first novels in that very office. I believe it was A Scarlet Letter. And you people don't know, but I know what happens when you do your own work on company time. You get fired. He was no different. They fired him. He was not unhappy about this, and I'll tell you why. He went to school with Franklin Pierce, one of our presidents, and this was a politically appointed job. He was not very keen about it, and his boss was even happier to see him go. Now, as we go down the street, we're going to make a short right turn into the parking lot of the House of the Seven Gables. When we do, look quickly to the left. You'll see E.O. Pepper Candy Shop right here. It is the oldest candy shop in America today. And if you go in there and try and ward off the calories, you are going to see a picture of Oprah Winfrey behind the counter. This is because I'm told she still calls them up once a month, has chocolate turtles sent to all her friends across America.
Wow.
Betty, your driver, and myself, we're still waiting. We live in eternal hope here. Now the House of Seven Gables, you can't quite see it from here. It's down the brick path to the right. Make a sharp left turn. When we move off, if you look through the trees, you will see part of the building. It is the original building, built in 1668 for Captain Turner and his family. 3 generations of Turners lived in that very building when it was sold to a Captain Ingersoll. And Captain Ingersoll, he passed away on one of his long sea voyages, leaving the House of the Seven Gables to his daughter, Susanna Ingersoll. And Susanna Ingersoll was the second cousin to Nathaniel Hawthorne. When he got laid off, pink slip, sacked, whatever you want to call it, he could be found almost every afternoon having tea with Susanna. They became exceptionally good friends, not romantically, just very good friends. Now I'll tell you something. In the winter, when these trolleys are snug in their garage and the snow is piled high here, I do a lot of research. And last winter I researched Susanna Ingersoll and Nathaniel Hawthorne. And I discovered the two of them had something a little stronger than tea occasionally. You know what I mean. Now as you get on the street here to the right, up until about 1890, this was wall-to-wall shipyards. At one time, Salem built 1/3 of all the new ships in America. They were small by European standards, but incredibly well built. So much so that a Salem-built ship in a foreign port, more often than not, the crew would be approached and asked if they would sell their ship. More than one crew sold their ship from beneath their feet for foreign reserve and hitched a ride back to the sailor on the next sailor bound here. 15th, 17th, and 18th century was not a problem. It was literally sailor ships were ruling the world. And at one time, Salem was the richest city in America. But you know something? In the course of about 3 or 4 years, it all went away. Can anyone on this trolley tell me why? I've heard that before. Actually, it was success. This harbor was handling ships 24/7. They were having a hard time keeping up with all the maritime traffic. Then they started building other ships. They didn't even build them here in Salem. They were built in East Boston, New York, the bigger ships were longer, deeper drawn, took up even more room than the crowded harbor. So after about 3 or 4 years, most of the maritime traffic moved away to deep water ports like Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore. But there were able to come other trades literally, tanning leather and textiles. Now we're about to make a sharp right turn here. When we do, keep looking to the right. This may sound like a contradiction. To the right, you're going to see America's first, maybe only, fresh sea water pool. And it works this way. As you look across the pool, you will see a stone dike. In the middle of the stone dike will be a small square cement structure. That is a dam. They would let high tide flow into this pool. At the moment of high tide, they would dam off the pool. People would swim in the non-tidal pool. Then approximately 6 hours later, as low tide approached, they would open up that dam. All this water would flow out, and they would replenish it on the left side high. Today, this pool is used as a marine laboratory by Salem State University. Yes. This was Yeah, but this pool was non-tidal. They would dam it off, and they would swim in the non-tidal pool. Now, I just crossed over onto what's known as Winter Island. I should tell you right up front that prior to about 1850, it used to take ships an average of 3 years round trip from Salem to Canton, China, and back again. Before we put chemical additives in the harbor or global warming, this harbor would freeze over solid every late December. So you can imagine a ship captain arriving back here after a 3-year round trip in late December and not being able to unload his cargo till, say, late March or early April. So they created Winter Island because it does not freeze over as solidly as the rest of the harbor. Today there's an RV court to the right, camping to the left. But in 1932, the United States Coast Guard bought this property. They started calling it Salem Air Station. Now, before you think I'm completely newbie, and you start looking for a runway and a control tower, I'll explain to you how the U.S. Coast Guard operated an air station. Now, the U.S. Coast Guard would park their amphibious aircraft on this parking spot. When they're ready to fly, they would taxi to the left of the trolley, down a ramp, and they would take off in the outer Salem harbor. Coming back, they just reversed the process.
That's beautiful.
Building to our rear is the hangar, built in 1933. And everywhere you look from this trolley, to the rear, which is the inner Salem harbor, across the harbor, the islands out on the horizon, and a point about 29 miles north of here. Back in the 1600s, all of this was Salem. Salem was an incredibly large area. However, The people across the harbor to our right here, they got fed up with the Puritans. In 1647, they petitioned the town fathers, begging them to let them break away. Surprisingly, they granted them that wish. Across the harbor, that became the township of Marblehead. Today, Marblehead is one of, if not the, most affluent townships in the state of Massachusetts. If you look to the right here and forward, the remains of Fort William, built by the British back in 1642 to defend this harbor against the Dutch. The Dutch never showed up. They were too busy trading with natives on a small island south of New England that eventually became known as Manhattan. And you can't see it from here, but there's a small but beautiful beach. And the Coast Guardsmen started calling this beach, but I'm not going to tell you. You're just going to have to read the placard here. I'm told that there are at least 2 of these beaches in the world, this one here in Salem, and the original one in Honolulu. Actually, there is a third one. Some of our Australian guests, which we have not seen this summer due to the pandemic, but they tell me on the west coast of Australia they also have a Waikiki beach. So, now, I may be dating myself, but I used to stand duty here in that hangar back in the 70s with the U.S. Coast Guard. So I've seen this outfit operating as an air station. Really fascinating to watch.
Sorry for the video. We're just sitting here right now. The driver knows how to go to the bathroom.
For a while, Salem did not realize what they had here by way of other territories. They could be made very pleasant to the public. So the last 4 or 5 years, they've been making an effort. Some of they spruced the place up, made it much more pleasant to go through and visit. And to be honest with you, it's a delightful place to come and visit, especially Waikiki Beach. They've got a tiki hut on there, and the beach is absolutely charming. Since I've come from a warmer climate, though, the sea here, it's not good for swimming in. Too cold. What else? Oh, the lighthouse? I think it's 1872 or so. It is the Coast Guard automated it about 30 years ago. But there used to be a little hut here where the lighthouse keeper stayed to maintain it. It's one of 3 lighthouses here in the immediate area. This one, then there's one across to our right here in Beverly, and one in Marblehead. And they're all automated.
About to get the show back on the road. Hope you're enjoying this video of Salem, Massachusetts.
But during World War II, they conducted air patrols from this air station looking for German U-boats. And in doing so, they carried live ammunition and depth charges. If you look to the right, you'll see the original bunkers they built in 1942 to stow their live ammunition and depth charges. And the very last person to be hanged in Salem was hanged here on the high ground of Winter Island. They did not hang the witches here, but this young lad not only stole a horse, but he burned down the barn he stole it from. I've been told that at least one of the campsites here supposedly is haunted. Okay, it's number 41 if you really want to know. As we go through the gates here, look to the right and forward of the trolley. You'll see a large green mansion. Back in the 1800s, it belonged to a Ms. Plummer. She noticed that when Salem transitioned from being a maritime port to tanning leather and textiles, there were a lot of wayward children out on the street. She started taking from 12 to 18 years old into that building. She fed them clothes, made sure they went to school every day. And during the summer recess, she would link them up with skilled craftsmen so that they had a skill for the rest of their lives. Today, social services still places up to 15 young men in the building. And recently, one of them was a class valedictorian at Salem Graduated High School. How cool is that? But as they say on TV, but wait, there is more. He received a free ginseng knife. No, I'm just kidding you. He got a full scholarship to Harvard. I'll beat that. That is amazing. Now I'm guessing most of you do not know the way tides work, so we're going to give you a quick course here. Here in Salem Harbor, we have 2 high tides, 2 low tides every day. It takes approximately 6 hours and 5 minutes for the tide to go from high to dead low. Approximately another 6 hours and 5 minutes from dead low back up to high. Now the high tides here in Salem Harbor only vary anywhere from 8 to 11 feet during the month. This is based on the phase of the moon. Right now we're approaching a full moon. Actually a blue moon on Saturday, Halloween. Now to demonstrate this to you, we are going to pause at a stone jetty here to our right. If you were here this morning at 10:48, it was high tide. At that time, the tide was pretty close to the top of this stone jetty. If you come back this afternoon at 4:53, it's going to be dead low tide here at Salem Harbor. At that time, you'll be able to jump off this stone jetty, walk in a straight line to those 2 large mansions on the other side of the cove.
Wow, that's crazy.
And your feet do not get wet. Muddy, yes, but not wet. Now during winter storm surges, the sea's been known to come up to the steps of these buildings to our left here. No, the bottom. Top steps would be a disaster. We're very much aware of the sea here in Salem. In fact, last winter it happened at least 3 times. Now we're going to make a sharp left turn here. When we do, look for a tan-colored, tall, private home. Sometimes the owner's cat is on the lawn. I've nicknamed him Garfield. Actually, I don't know what his name is, but that's not important because actually that's not what I want you to look for. Look at the second floor of this tan-colored private home to our right here. You should see a stained glass window that looks like a peacock tail. I've been told he got that from a church in Rhode Island. Now back in 1801, the British gave Salem 200 willow trees as a gift. Salem wanted them in this immediate area. Changed the name of this area to Salem Willows. Always had dance floors here, amusement park rides, popcorn, cotton candy, you get the idea. But in the 1940s, all your big band sounds, people like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, they played here every summer.
That's impressive.
And if you look to the right, across the harbor here, to the city of Beverly, I pointed out to you, not because I lived there, I do, but the city of Beverly to our right, and the township of Marblehead that I showed you earlier, are constantly arguing that they are the birthplace of the U.S. Navy. Personally, I say that neither one of them are right, because George Washington picked up ships and boats and up and down the coast, and that became the U.S. Navy. But I have an offhand interest in this, because actually I'm a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard.
Thank you for your service.
Charming beach. named Dead Horse Beach. The year was 1914. World War I was getting ready to break out in Europe. The date, the 25th of June. The time, 1:38 in the afternoon. A fire broke out here in Salem. It burnt for almost 2 whole days. Over 3,500 people were made homeless by that fire. To my knowledge, nobody died in it. However, during the 2 days, Salem was forced to call up fire departments from around the countryside. Many of them were towed by horses. Many of those horses, unfortunately, perished in that fire. So you had dead horses, June temperatures, not a good combination. So they buried them here at the low tide mark. Changed the name of this beach to Dead Horse Beach. I've been told the lifeguards here in summer are continually telling people not to horse around.
This area is so nice though.
What's known as Memorial Drive. At the end of World War II, the city of Salem offered returning World War II veterans a chance to buy a $1 lottery ticket. If they won, they would get a patch of land here. But you know, not many, if any, took them up on that offer. So at the end of the Korean War, they offered the same deal to returning Korean War veterans. This time, inflation had crept in. The cost of a lottery ticket was $15. The homes you see on both sides of this drawing were all built on land by the original owner that only cost them $15. Now today, this is prime property here in Salem, and as such, the city of Salem assesses these homes an average of $450,000. And if you look to the right here, great condos on top of the hillock. When they were excavating the basement of these, they kept on finding rock that looked volcanic. So they got a geology professor at Salem State University to look at the rocks. He said, you know, you're right, they do look volcanic. So to look very clear, this is here. And they discovered that this trolley right now is on top of an extinct volcano that extends from here to the New Hampshire, Massachusetts border to our north and just south of Boston. And if you look through the windshield, from left to right, you should see 5 blue domes. They belong to St. Nicholas, Russian Orthodox Church. I'm told this is one of 2 of the oldest Russian Orthodox churches in America today. However, I question because for many years Alaska was under Russian rule, so how are we measuring it? Now as we go through Salem today or tomorrow, it will dawn on you that a lot of families make a lot of money here. Certainly not Betty, your driver, or myself. But one of the families, Captain Crowninshield, very wealthy, he was taught to Calcutta, India in 1875 because nobody here in Salem had ever seen an elephant. He bought a baby elephant for $400, loaded aboard a sailing ship. In those days, it took a sailing ship at least 4 or 5 months to get to Salem from Calcutta, India. And what you must know is that on board a sailing ship in 1875, fresh water was scarce. What the crew did not know was that elephants, even a baby elephant, drink a lot of fluids every 24 hours. So it looks like they had a problem. But I encourage you, if you have a smartphone, to Google it. I tell you no lies. Captain Crowninshield had a cargo of beer on board. So in order to alleviate the fresh water situation, he started issuing this elephant a daily ration of beer. When the elephant arrived here in Salem, He was a happy elephant. Also. And Captain Crown and Shield was displaying here to the left on Salem Common for price. And if you look to the right here, this pale green mansion belonged to one of his relatives. They were truly not a poor family. Eventually, Mr. Bailey showed up, bought this elephant outright for $10,000, and Mr. Bailey for taking this elephant all around New England, as far south as New York City, for a price. Now this afternoon, as you look at Salem Common to our left here, look at the wrought iron fence that surrounds it. You will notice it has stylized pineapples on it. This was derived from the fact that ships sailing to and from China, from Salem, would go through the South Sea Islands. There, they would stop at any island to replenish their water and food. They noticed that if they rowed towards the beach, if the natives came down to greet them with a fresh pineapple in their hand, it was a symbol of their hospitality. So today when you see stylized pineapples on gateposts, buildings, even cards in a gift shop, the pineapple is a symbol of hospitality. Now coming up to one of our most popular stops on the trolley, the Witch Museum. As some of you may have figured out, yes, I do come from Europe originally, where our history, thousands of years old, and I had to study it. When I sat down to study Salem history, a short, minute 400 years, I couldn't believe how many discrepancies there were in their history. Well, here at the Witch Museum, coming up on our right-hand side, they have a 38-minute multimedia presentation that, in my humble opinion, is one of the most accurate of before, during, and after the witch hysteria. Right here to our right. If it looks like an old church, you are right. It was an old church. It was gutted by fire. They opened it up as a car museum. 1 year later, gutted by fire again. So far, the Witch Museum has been there at least 34 years, no fire. To the left here is the Hawthorne Hotel. It was a community project back in 1925. They have a quaint custom of flying 2 flags every day at street level. The first flag to our rear is from some state from around America. Today it happens to be Vermont. The second flag is from some country from around the world. Today it happens to be Denmark. Now they change these flags every day alphabetically.